So welcome to the FlyForm podcast. I'm joined today by Mark Revel and Adam Haylock from ServiceNow. Mark has got 30 years in the IT industry and 4.5 years at ServiceNow. He's a senior advisory solutions consultant, a generalist, but with a specialization in the ITOM suite. Adam's got 22 years in the IT industry with an ITSM and operational IT background. He's been at ServiceNow for 2.5 years as a senior solution consultant and also focuses on ITOM and operational IT. So thanks for joining me, guys.
No, it's great to be here.
Welcome to Cardiff.
Thanks very much for having us. Can I just say, even though I've been in IT for 22 years, it makes me sound old. I am actually also a millennial.
Me too. Right on.
I don't think Mark is, though.
No, Adam is the oldest millennial.
You're on the fringes of going into the next one like me, aren't you?
Absolutely.
Yeah. I didn't know I was a millennial for a long time. Did you?
I don't think really, I don't. I just say I am. Whatever the category is.
We have to have one in our team, and it's Adam.
Yeah.
What's the next thing after millennial now? Is it like the Gen Y or Z they've been coming out with lately? There's another one.
Now there's a new one, isn't it?
Yeah.
I think it's Gen Z, but I can't remember. Yeah.
Nice. We're not going to have a clue about that lot. I can't keep up with my kids' generations, let alone any others.
I know.
So today we're going to talk about AIOps and what it is. We're going to talk about how to create a kind of an AIOps environment, I guess. What kind of components go into that in terms of getting an AIOps operation running, the business benefits, and some other bits and pieces. So just setting the scene. So I've got some definitions here, and you guys can wade in. So what is AIOps? So it's adding artificial intelligence and human intelligence to IT operations. That's a Gartner term since around 2016. So that's how they kind of refer to AIOps. We've obviously started seeing in the last 2 years vendors kind of rebranding their their positioning in the market and their product lines in line with that AIOps term. I actually heard it for the first time back in, it might have even been last year, but it was in Barcelona. So it was at one of the partner summits with you guys, and they actually had an AIOps breakout session. I think it was last year's potentially or the year before, and they did a big session on it, and I was kind of thinking, okay, this is a new term, and I know whenever ServiceNow come to the table with a new term, it's going to take off somewhere because obviously they've done all the research and they've they're monitoring the market and seeing what's going on. So is there anything you'd want to add in terms of explaining a little bit about what AIOps is?
I think you explained it pretty well. It is all around adding some of the intelligence into the way we do operations management in IT. So it's taking a lot of the functionality that we potentially use with intelligence, in our case, within ServiceNow.
Yeah.
But it's a general term. You see all vendors starting to use it now.
Yeah, of course.
I've been doing this sort of things for what it seems like ever. Yeah. But we're trying to automate it more. We're trying to make it more intelligent. We've always talked about things being proactive rather than reactive.
Yeah.
I think we've always struggled to get there.
Yeah.
This is probably the latest technology that you do sort of see some light at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah.
That we can start doing more automation, resolving issues, hopefully before users see them.
Nice. And we used to talk about that journey of kind of reactive to proactive and then really predictive. And is this the world where that brings in that predictive kind of element to the world where it's actually spotting things then before they break and that kind of side?
Yeah, it's the whole point. So I still think we suffer a little bit and we're still very reactive.
The world is still too reactive, yeah.
And the proactive side of things, we're getting better at, but there's a lot of commitment for people to do it. They don't necessarily trust it. I totally agree with you. I think when you start getting predictive, so being able to work out based on historic events and things like that, last time we saw this, X happened, so we think it's probably going to happen again because we're seeing the right data. Will give people more confidence to be able to do, and because it will be based on things and resolutions that were done last time we saw something like this, and I think that will give people more confidence to do more auto remediation because IT generally, I still think, and I spent 12 years in IT in manufacturing, it was a confidence to actually automate a task because as an IT people, we like to be in control a little bit.
Yeah, definitely.
Certainly was the way. I mean, the only thing when we start thinking about AIOps, and you're right, I only really started to hear this and learn about this again, so probably within the last year. But we have been doing this for much longer than that.
Yes,
It's just that
without the
Gartner
term.
coined that term, and we kind of can build a story around it. I mean, what I would always say is it's not one thing. It's not a capability that you buy. In terms of, I'm going to invest in AIOps. It's a set of capabilities. Part of that is, as you were talking about, machine learning and predictive intelligence, enabling organizations to become much more proactive. But it's also about the CMDB and being, aware of your business services, some of the natural language capabilities, and as you said, humans as well. Lucky for us, there's a lot of elements to it all coming together to become much more proactive, and because IT's just got so much more complex.
Absolutely,
more data, more technologies, and we can't just throw people at it. That's what we did before. We talked about when we were working in IT 15, 20 years ago. How can we invest in people? How can we just hire more people and try and manage the
noise
that way and the noise, and that we just can't do that anymore.
It's a story I've shared before where I was working for Logicalis, I think it matters I say. I was working for Logicalis, and I was building the NOC in South Wales for what was to become the public sector network in Wales, the PSBA. In fact, that was where I bought ServiceNow. That was my first foray. So we were a big remedy house, and they actually flew David Pink and Kevin Kimber over, and because back then it was so small, you had the European sales director to sell it to, it was pretty cool. And they, I forgot my train of thought now. What were we talking about before I went into my little story?
Set of capabilities.
People.
Oh yeah, so the NOC and the efficiencies and stuff. So I'd been building the NOC there, and we were throwing people at it. We had a very noisy NMS monitoring the network, multiple NMS systems, multiple niche tools monitoring all the systems. And part of my ServiceNow journey, which was awesome, was I'd bought ServiceNow for those guys. I'd been implementing it in Wales initially, then the UK, and then I was really fortunate. A guy took me onto the global team with Logicalis to work on this global platform we were building. And part of that was going to different countries and analysing their systems, so it was cool. So I got flown out to Sao Paulo, and because I think it was a developing country as well, they'd come in 20 years after our IT journey in the UK. So I was expecting to go over there and it'd be worse. So I'm thinking I'm going to go to this developing country and it's going to be terrible. And I get there and it was the most efficient system. It's probably one of the still most efficient I've ever seen until today. And this was in 2012 because they'd obviously come in at the end of our IT journey, skipped all our mistakes and mess, didn't build any of the old crap into the system. They just started with a clean piece of paper and said, well, what does good look like? So they could, even in 2012, you could pick any client, any node in the system and go back through all the tickets, then back to the contract that was signed, back to the pre-sales document. It was unprecedented for me. But within the NOC then, they had an IMSoft integration, and the IMSoft would send in the alerts. And back then they'd built all this themselves. It was auto-categorizing, auto-prioritizing, auto-assigning. So their team was doing something treble what my team was doing, and it was about a quarter of the size. And that was the first time I kind of put A and B, one and one together. I thought, what? Did that with that? They were so far ahead, and it was a really amazing to see the scale of the economies that brought with just the assignments, and because my guys were sitting there half the day trying to figure out what a ticket, what's this node, where's it going to go, what type of alert is it?
That's the thing, and you make me reflect a bit about thinking about previous working life, and what I used to see often was, so I was more in the service management space, but would also be working with and responsible for the operations side. When we had the people, when we just threw people at it, you found in the operations they were much more specialised. They had to know that and knock and that technology inside
really
and out,
niche skills,
which was great if you had the right people. The problem was they would protect that area. What happens when they leave? How do you share knowledge and all the stories we know about? Technology is moving so fast now, businesses need to adapt and move at a much more agile pace. We cannot operate like that.
I think that's really true. And that was a problem. People had their knowledge in their head, and one of two things: if you lost them, you had problems, or they would basically be there forever, but they would still do things 10 years later the way they used to do them first year.
I mean, how many times have you seen it when, I don't know, a server goes down or a service goes down, somebody's saying, well, how do we bring that back? Because I don't know, Mark knows, he's left.
He's on holiday. He's always on holiday.
Always the way.
And it's the tools as well. So we talk about lots of people, but of course in those days we had lots of tools, niche tools, one tool for the database, one tool for networks if we were lucky, and they all siloed. And actually today, in a lot of cases, they still are siloed. So they're still looked after by their own teams.
They are,
And that's what makes part of this journey, which is the root cause analysis, one of the most difficult things to be able to work out, because that's in the organisation I worked for before, we sort of said that was 70% of all the troubleshooting time was actually trying to find out what the root cause was.
What actually caused it? We've got it back online. What was the real underlying?
We might not even got it online. You know, we still don't actually know what the problem is. We know where the problem initiated. But fixing it, rebooting it didn't actually solve it, or it did for 2 minutes and then it went down. It's understanding that, and when you got siloed tools, without that, I hate to use the term, but the single pane of glass to be able to work out where everything's coming back in, it's really challenging to be able to sort that out quickly.
It ties into another point, and you mentioned one or both of you the CMDB again, and as always the CMDB, it really is underpinning everything in this, you know, unleashing the power of these days, the efficiencies, the technologies. You know, if you don't know what you've got and it's not recorded and it's not accessible and all this kind of stuff, you this journey is a non-starter in terms of efficiencies.
You know, maybe if people are out there listening or interested in AIOps, trying to understand what it is and thinking it's a magic solution that they can, as I said, buy or purchase or consume and put into their business, and all of a sudden their operational state is going to be perfect. It's not, unless they've got that foundation across the enterprise, ITSM, IT operations. You know, AIOps is just another layer that's going to go on there, and as I say, using a set of capabilities they already have. It's probably just the machine learning, the AI side of it they won't have, that you'll be bringing in and working together.
And you, CMDB, completely correct, you need to have that as up to date as possible. You're allowing the machine to make the decisions, and that takes you all the way from the root cause that we just spoke about all the way to the eventual remediation. You don't want it getting that wrong, because actually that server doesn't do quite what it used to do. So keeping these things up to date, keeping to understand the way those business services are working. And Adam said at the start, you know, it's no longer just about CIs. It should be about CIs that make up the business service.
Absolutely,
And then again, why is it important? Just whilst we're looking back, you know, in that time, can I say it was almost okay for services to go down? I remember times
it was expected
when
something was going to go
IT
down.
were that siloed unit. We didn't report to the rest of the business. If something went down, we didn't even communicate or tell everybody else. We would just work on bringing it back, whether that was 5 minutes, an hour. You know, I can still remember times. I hope that none of my ex-bosses are listening. You know, switching the wrong server off.
Everyone's done stuff.
And the wrong server goes down. Doesn't matter. We'll just bring it back online. Nobody. You know, we just answer to ourselves. That is not the case anymore. You know, we have this zero tolerance towards services going down, and that's what people expect. That's what happens in outside of work. Everything's available all the time. You think about the reputational damage,
that, isn't it?
as well as, you know, obvious revenue.
And the communication is key, isn't it? I mean, if you look, even with this cyber attack with TravelX now, and like the chief exec didn't speak for something like 14 days or something. It's like, you can't do that anymore. You need, even if you don't know, you need to come out and say, stuff's broke, we don't know, we're fixing it. But it's definitely a different world. And going back to another point around technology moving so fast, I think that's another big key thing, isn't it? You know, I've been a technologist for years, and even now, because of running this business, I struggle to keep up with tech now. You know, we're looking at all the serverless technology and Dockers and all these other bits and pieces are coming out. You know, you can't have these teams, like you said, going back to throwing people at things. You then need a Docker specialist and a Kubernetes specialist, and all these other tools are coming in. And you get to a certain level where they're either not going to be specialist enough, or they're not broad enough to cover the bases at the bottom. And, you know, but by automating a lot of that and giving yourself that intelligence with this product, that's another pain point removed, isn't it?
Yeah, I think it's taken out some of the complexity of the services nowadays, because they are more complex. You've got a mixture of on-prem and hybrid Things have been spun up, spun down all the time, hopefully to try and save some money.
Yeah.
To the next part of AIOps. But ultimately, it's around, as Adam says, keeping those business services up and running.
Yeah.
And the only real way forward now to cope with the complexity and diversity of some of these applications is to allow the machine to do some of the learning itself.
The machine's coming to take over.
It's coming to help us make decisions.
I don't mind if it takes over. If it makes our lives easier and better, then we're all happy. Great. So looking at the kind of main business benefits with AIOps, we see the kind of three primary ones called out as being kind of greater user satisfaction, so your client satisfaction essentially, because we feel that it proactively reduces the amount of time to detect, to diagnose, to fix issues. So obviously better quality of service, going back to the point you just raised. Greater IT cost savings, so helping organizations increase their kind of control over the operation. And I guess that is things like VMs being spun up, spun down. Again, mean time to fix is a huge cost saving because of some companies are losing a lot of money with big outages. And traditionally then, IT has been seen as a busy team fighting fires, and this is again seen as a tool to help IT become a kind of business partner. So they've got more time and resources saved by AIOps doing a bit more for them, or making them a bit more efficient, therefore allowing them to contribute back into the business more. So, and the reason I'm calling those out is for people listening, those are the kind of, the scale of benefits you can realize from implementing this properly, and implementing it in any way as well, I guess. It's a journey, as we just said. It's not something you buy and turn on. It's going to be a long-term journey. And it's probably a journey, I guess, like with most things, it doesn't really end, I would say. I mean, with a CMDB, for me, you can do a CMDB project and close that, but it then needs the life cycle process around it, config management. Are there new CIs coming in? Are there new technologies coming in? And I'm assuming with AIOps, that forms part of that kind of world, really, because you're going to want to govern, manage, maintain, detect on new technologies and new things coming in.
Yeah, absolutely. It's interesting you said about CMDB projects, and that's always the issue, is a CMDB project starts and then finishes.
Yep.
And then it's after that it starts to lose its compatibility, its clarity of what's actually out there. You need to keep it up to date. And that's probably nowadays even once a week when you're more cloud-based is not good enough. It's got to be pretty near real time.
Yep.
So you need to make that work. You need to be getting the machine to make decisions on stuff that actually exists. Yeah. And for me, the discovery, understanding what you have out there and populating or updating your CMDB based on that is key. Absolutely. And it affects people's decisions. It goes all the way back into the ITSM world, where you've got your service desk operator who is more capable of maybe doing first-time resolution based on understanding that what's there is actually there. That's what the problem is, what that links to in the business service. Yeah. And then finally looking at some of the data that we have on that particular CI or business service to then say, well, what's happened in the past? And that's where you can start using the intelligence to, rather than you go through all the previous incidents or alerts that have happened within the system, allow it to show you. Yeah. So you can start to see if there's any similarities in there.
Nice. Yeah, I think it's always, as you say, people leave the CMDB, the project, and if they haven't put in those processes, those procedures to maintain it as we always say it's a living thing. It needs to be treated like that, and someone needs to be assigned to that. And if you lose confidence, for me, in the CMDB, so as soon as you don't do that, and then things are wrong once or twice or three times, someone then goes, the techies especially would be like, well, I'm not going to bother looking in there because it's not right, but I can log into the Cisco tool or the NetApp tool, and I can see in real time what's really there. And then the CMDB starts to lose value, lose confidence, and then all of a sudden a year later it's on a shelf, basically.
And it's just that one person who can see that.
Yeah.
And nobody else has that benefit.
Absolutely. And it doesn't have the context of the business services and all the stuff we're talking about now, right? So as soon as you leave the strategic tool, you're losing those massive benefits that we're saying that you'll get from enabling this stuff.
And luckily, it's got easier now. So with service mapping and discovery, it's so much easier to get an accurate CMDB that works and so on. But you're right, you have to constantly have some governance around it and look after it and so on.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's using other things within the environment that allows you to keep the CMDB up to date as well. So from an Azure and an AWS perspective, it's sending you the details to keep that up to date. In real time can be simply put into the CMDB. So it's not all about ServiceNow, but it's a way we can also ingest that ingest that detail.
Yeah, and when we show this, Mark, don't we? When we look at the fun stuff at ServiceNow, we're thinking about an operator being inside alert intelligence and actually having an action button to remediate an issue. One click. Start talking about the one click to solve an issue.
Yeah.
Yep.
When we show that, it looks great and really easy. But if you think about it, there's a lot going on in the background to enable that operator to have the confidence to be able to just press one button and reboot a server or fix an issue, whatever, because we have the data around the CI, the business service, so we're confident. Yes, you can do that at 12 o'clock.
Yeah, because if that doesn't work correctly, people will then lose confidence in the system and blame the machine, and there'll be some director saying you're not doing that again, everything's manual, and which is why it's got to, that foundation's got to be so good, isn't it?
It's not always going to have the right answer.
Of course not.
So off the back of that, again, the system of action allows you to basically say, well, just manually check it if it fails.
Yeah.
But it is absolutely, it installs that confidence. It installs the fact that somebody is getting a recommendation. It's also reducing what they could potentially do. So they're focused, they've got the root cause, they've got the remediation options. That's the best that it thinks that they should utilise. Ultimately, I've talked about this before, you just want it to do it and resolve it anyway. Yeah. But sometimes people's confidence isn't enough in the system to do that.
Yeah.
But you can still do that. So simple things like clearing down temporary space, restarting services if they've gone down. That's something that you should just be able to do like that off the back of an emergency or standard change. So it's logged, but you just do it because there's a reasonable chance it will get the system up and running again. Yeah. Might not resolve the problem of why it occurred, but it keeps the lights on, which is what a lot of people...
It's like the new equivalent to the reboot.
Yeah. So what was the story you used to say about running a batch file to...
Oh, so we used to have printer issues when...
That was it.
Spooler service issues on Windows NT 3.51. Now that's going. Nobody on this call will actually have heard that. Nobody will think podcast. What's Windows NT 3.51? But we ran a lot of our shop floor systems on that, and the biggest thing that causes the biggest headache was when they wanted to print out delivery notes at 4 o'clock in the morning, as you'd expect. The spooler failed. Now we couldn't give them permission to open it up because the potential damage you could cause with that particular permissions. So we used to have to dial in, me and the team, we had a rotor, a typical on-call rotor, and used to have to dial in old complex technologies, taking an hour or so to get on. The only person who could call us in the first place was the team lead. So again, the process there. So you took potentially 2 hours getting the delivery note out, which is a delay on a lorry, which potentially will then get fined for being late at its destination. When you're doing just in time, that's not a good thing. Yeah. So we just wrote loads of batch files, which basically said if it ever goes down, just restart it. Yeah. And it reduced the calls by about 80%. Those particular calls by 80%.
Yeah. So just going back to set the scene, then, what we're kind of saying is IT is complicated. You've got the volume and the speed and the variety of data coming in, all the multiple tool sets. These days, all the different technologies. So it's this ongoing thing of noise, isn't it? And then we've got cloud and on-prem now, virtualized, native, cloud native, SaaS, all these kind of things. And as I just said, containers and serverless architectures. And I don't even know what's next, to be honest. I'm assuming there's some other thing about to, there's always something in tech about to drop, isn't there? And this then, when you, and going to Mark's point around then the silos around that. So then you've got these siloed tools and siloed teams, and people still kind of, partly people living in that world and partly the way it's architected and built, and some of it may be legacy, causing this big kind of, still this complex kind of beast, really. Which ties into the same message we give about the CMDB, and the fact that it's trying to give some visibility and control in a joined-up manner and into this single pane of glass, isn't it? And then what we want to do with AIOps is take that kind of foundation that's been built for the single pane of glass and put some machine learning, some intelligence, some artificial intelligence on top, some human intelligence, and basically fix and find and automate things and bring information to people's fingertips better. Have you guys got any kind of real examples of places where you've worked, with where you've got these tough to maintain SLAs, people are overwhelmed, everything's busy? I obviously gave one earlier on in Logicalis where we were constantly throwing people at the knock. It was we were onboarding circuits quicker than we could manage them, and then things would be breaking. But have you thought of any, or have you seen any good transformations where you've been in the messy world and you've managed to get it to a cleaner world?
Personally, I've not experienced that, but I've been in pre-sales for the last 20 years. So we talked to customers about it, and we've had in all the organisations I've worked for previously, We've had the plans in place to do that, and the delivery guys have gone out and succeeded in doing those sort of things, be it my previous organisations or ServiceNow.
Yeah.
So I think we've got a lot of stories around that side of things.
Yeah.
I think the big learn is it's not just technology, it's process, sometimes culture as well, that you need to disrupt or change to make these work better. I also, from the experience that I've seen when I've been talking back to the customers where this is going off, is it's a phased approach. You struggle to get big bangs to work because it's too much disruption all at once.
Yeah, well said. I think that's a very important point to get across. With all of this technology, AIOps, whatever we're talking about, it has to be a phased approach. And, you know, that's where we need to be, we need that consultative approach to think about how do we bring this piece of technology in, how do we adopt AIOps, and it's not about in a week, you know, we walk away and an organisation is using AIOps, whatever. It is absolutely that phased approach, small wins to get yourself up and running. And like you said.
Yeah, small wins is a good thing. And I think the other thing that people don't always think, yes, we have these buzzwords, so it's AIOps at the moment. No doubt in a couple of years' time, Gartner will come up with something different. But ultimately, people look at these new words and think, oh, they're going to rip out everything I've got. And I'm going to have to start again. I've spent 10 years learning this, and it's my baby, etc., etc. It's not, The problem with the technology that you've got is you're not necessarily using it to the effectiveness that it could be and efficiency that it could be. So we don't usually look at ripping stuff out. It might be there's some legacy stuff that could go, but ultimately you need to be able to use what you've got more effectively and efficiently. And I think by using some of the principles around AIOps, you can start to do that. But you're not necessarily ripping out technology that people know. You're just using it in a better way, taking those silos away, and allowing you to, you know, ultimately it's all around getting that meantime to respond a lot quicker, to get things sorted, and hopefully ultimately to ensure that systems don't go down quite so much, because you'll learn from that information as well. So to me, it should never be a fear. It should always be seen as a progress.
Something to embrace and enjoy.
Absolutely. It's making your job hopefully more exciting, because you're not doing the mundane stuff anymore. You're letting machine learning do a lot of the mundane side of things. And you're doing maybe a little bit more around the innovation, working with systems, looking at making things better, rather than just keeping the lights on.
I'm so glad you said that around culture, because, you know, if people are fighting to hold on to their particular area of a knock or operations, then, you know, we need to have a conversation. It's not about that. It's about freeing them up to, as Mark said, work on much
and
more exciting
more job
things,
satisfaction, isn't
job
it?
satisfaction, being able to be more creative and innovative, rather than having three sat at a desk with three screens, keyboards and mice everywhere. It's not the way to work. Talking about what have you seen in the business? So my experience is a blended approach of service management and operations. So where I've seen it is I've sat in rooms where a change management, a cab, and we're talking about a change, and we've got a very qualified engineer in the room responsible for that change, and you're sort of having the conversation pre, you know, CMDB or had an element not the business service. Conversation is, well, okay, what's the impact? There won't be an impact. It's fine. Are you sure? There's no impact. Are you 100% sure? Because you're going to do this on a Friday at 2. No problem at all. Okay, fine. Prove the change. What happens? Server goes down. Engineer's not there to fix it. Chaos. So I've experienced that. We've seen it.
100%.
Then we move into more of a, you know, when we start talking about bringing in AIOps and elements of that, the conversation is gone. And we know what the impact is. We trust it. We've got the data. We know what's going to happen. We know the impact. We know when we can manage this change.
It's all visibility. It's all about visibility.
Exactly.
And that goes beyond IT. So we're very focused on IT and what we talk about quite a lot of the time. But it's not this. The CMDB is for everybody to utilise.
Correct.
The security guys should be using the CMDB. Presuming it's a good one, which you all hope it is nowadays after this podcast today. They use it to understand what those ramifications are. If they have some sort of breach, what's it affecting from a business service point of view? Because again, all of their tools feed back their information from security based on a CI, a single server, process, or network switch, or whatever it might be. They don't necessarily, if they don't have the information, get to know that actually that's taken down the e-commerce site.
Yep.
Or it's taken down the SAP system, or whatever it might be.
Yeah.
And at the moment, they tend not to have that visibility.
Yeah.
By keeping all this in one place and by sharing that information, and it is all about collaboration, then something that somebody in the operations business can actually start benefiting other departments within that organisation. And I think that's key and sometimes quite overlooked.
Yeah, when I did this project in Logicalis, where I'd been off globally and came back, and a big part of it was actually building a proper CMDB, funnily enough, because it was 2012. We had this quote CMDB, which was an asset list and remedy, and it was an asset list, and it was and it wasn't accurate, and it was getting there. It was a fairly good job given the tools and the information was available then. It was okay, but my biggest thing coming back, my biggest takeaway to implement back into the UK region was we need a CMDB, and it was all based on the business service, which back then was, I think, pretty unheard of.
Yep.
And I had this concept of our business service, because they kept having issues where a circuit would go down. I'll tell you what they did was, and it's not their fault, but the contract was called PSBA, which was Public Sector Broadband Aggregation. So when they started to add locations to the network, they gave them PSBA numbers. So this office was PSBA 1 and that building was PSBA 2. Then when they started to add circuits to the network, they were given PSBA numbers. So there was circuit PSBA 0001 in this building. And then they started to add hardware and it was oh God. So when something went down, you didn't notice the circuit. People are giving you a number. It's like, is that the location? Is that the circuit? Is it the hardware?
Or is it a building?
PSBA had been put everywhere. And then on top of that, to add the complexity, we ended up with sites with resilience with multiple circuits in. And then so originally they tied like a PSBA number to a circuit and a location as one as well. So that circuit and this location were both PSBA 3. And all of a sudden you had two circuits in there. You have like 3 and 4. And it was like, well, how do you tie that to one location? It was broke, which is why I came back and I was like, look, guys, we can have a service and we can give the service a number. Yep. And under the service, we can have the circuit in there, the hardware, the multiple circuits. And for a lot of time, people, they didn't get it at first. But as part of that CMDB project anyway, one of the things I was talking about a lot of the time was trying to bring other stuff into the CMDB. And one of the white papers I'd read at the time even talked about putting people in the CMDB. So they were like, put people in the CMDB and attach their skills, their work hours, their this, their that. So when there's a fault, you go into a ticket, you could say, well, John has got network skills and he's available during these hours, and using that even to maintain that stuff, which even today people struggle to think of anything outside of IT in there.
Yeah, absolutely. And you can when you have that, then you can start actually automating that. So you can say something's gone down.
Yep.
This is the person or the team or group. Link that to that and just pull everything together.
And I think that's where we're sort of going. I wouldn't say beyond the CMDB because the CMDB will always be around, but this is where you're going into really that common services data model.
Okay.
Where it's not just about individual CIs, it's about business services, about how they're put together, who looks after those responsibilities, bringing all that together.
Well, people looking after things is a big one, isn't it? Like, who is the person accountable for this piece of the estate, or who does approve these change on this bit of the estate and that kind of stuff, who's technically responsible, who owns the data. And those are the bits that are typically missed in traditional CMDB projects that have then caused that fall down. So.
And as we spoke about earlier, a lot of time still is spent actually assigning stuff to people.
Yeah.
Trying to work out.
And back, and then back to a different team because it's the wrong team and there's a bit of information missing. And
But when you've got all that data within your systems, you should be able to get logical, quick decisions. And that's what we have from a predictive intelligence point of view. In the fact we can just do that. So as soon as you log a ticket, it will look at what's happened in the past. It will look at that against a trained model from everything that's happened with your organisation in the past and assign it. And we see some 80+% hit rate on those being accurate.
Which is
massive.
Huge. Imagine the amount of people that just they're signing out, trying to figure out, where does this go? What does that mean? Which team is it actually go to? And then maybe it's the wrong team anyway, they click and... you've got multiple Unix teams or something. It was always that kind of stuff that used to happen with us.
And you might be able to get away with it if it's a relatively small business.
Yeah.
But when you start considering working in a huge enterprise, massive organisation, then it's almost impossible to know who to get.
You won't know everything.
No.
Small organisation,
Mistakes will
yes,
happen.
it'll be the person sat next to you potentially. But a massive organisation, it might be someone in a completely different geo.
Yeah.
That is that expert.
Yeah. Cool. So bringing this back into ServiceNow a little bit more. So we kind of talk about AIOps in the ServiceNow will being centered around the kind of ITSM plus ITOM plus maybe SAM kind of forming this kind of world of AIOps. And are we putting the machine learning and the AI kind of stuff under the ITOM suite in the like operational intelligence and those kind of product lines? So is that kind of how you see, are those the right products you would see as being part of that AIOps world, or?
Yeah, they all link in.
Okay.
Yeah, so you've got the operations management, which I always say you probably don't always start with that.
Yeah.
You'll start with ITSM
Yeah.
or maybe CSM.
Yeah.
As you say, you'll put SAM in there as well.
Yeah.
But ultimately, all of them will feed off all the good information
Okay.
and improve the processes by having IT operations management or AIOps.
Yeah.
And then there's phases within that.
Yeah.
So we talked about things like discovery, which is ultimately all about visibility.
Yeah.
You've then got the health of the systems, which is all around the event management and the operational intelligence.
Okay.
We'll maybe talk about a little bit later.
Yeah, great.
And then finally, you've got the optimization perspective, which is really more focused around the cloud side of things. So cloud is interesting. People like it. They all think it's cheap. It's not if you don't manage it correctly. Yeah. It just becomes a big hole where people spend a lot of money without actually knowing where it goes. And from our perspective, what we try to do is it's not all about the provisioning, although that's a big thing to all the end users, is they want to be able to provision things quicker, and we can make that a lot speedier process, down from days down to hours, if not less than that. It's actually also about managing those costs. Yeah. Feeding that back, assigning them to budgets, giving recommendations of actually those particular instances over there you could maybe spin down overnight because they're only ever used by DevOps, that sort of side of things. So that all comes together, and sort of the badge around that is just ITX. Okay. So because it's really all of the IT side of things, just bringing those together. But fundamentally, I see the AIOps has been a major part to be able to speed those processes up and then feed the good information back into the ITSM or the SAM.
Back into the processes and
the software asset management from the discovery. You never know what you've got out there if you don't know what you've got out there. So.
I mean, we were talking about this morning, how AIOps is definitely not just an operational thing. It is ITSM, ITOM, ITBM, SAM, even security. It's across the business. If you think about it too narrow and you just think about it as an operations capability, then you're going to silo that off. And again, you're not going to have
that's a really important point, isn't it?
Approach. So it's just that, as Mark said, it naturally goes from a service management. Once you've got that side of it working, CMDB, service management, your processes, your governance, it then feeds into operational management. And in terms of predictive intelligence, bringing it back to ServiceNow, as you said, we've seen that grow through the platform. So it started off a few releases ago in terms of that categorization, the classification. So think more ITSM, incident management, case management. Let's remove the need for wasting time and getting mistakes and actually get that done, rooted to the first person. Then we've seen that grow in terms of similarity, again, whether that's incident cases and so on, all the way through to clustering. Now we're starting to move into AIOps and events and alerts and grouping that automatically, hence removing the noise and so on. So it's been interesting to see that side of, let's call it AI. We talk about AI in ServiceNow world, it is predictive intelligence. It's great to see that grow throughout the platform, even into ITBM and innovation management.
So what is that looking like then? Because that was going to be my question. So with like ITBM or security things, so is the vision that AIOps is in the same way it predicts maybe outages in ITOM, that it'll predict security events? It'll see certain things start to happen, or how do you kind of see it going across different parts of the platform?
So that's a very good question. So I think the operations side helps with things like SecOps to be able to look at predicting outages and things like that. However, it can't do it on its own. So that's why within our security operations, we, for example, bring in threat intelligence information.
Okay. Yeah.
And then link that to the assets that already exist, but also the history of what's in there.
Okay.
So you can see what we would normally do if you didn't have any of this visibility in. A lot of this is going down to that visibility word again.
Yeah.
If you didn't have that as a security operator, managing the various threats that come in, then basically what you have is you have 15 different calls which all look slightly different.
Yeah.
But when you're bringing in, actually, they've all got this version of Windows on, for example, and the threat intelligence is saying all these problems are coming from this IP source that we're seeing coming in, that helps you link it all together.
Okay, that makes sense.
And you'll see more of that. Our AIOps, our AI overall,
the whole journey,
is growing every single release that we do.
Cool.
And we're either doing that through our own development teams or through acquisitions.
Yeah, okay.
That's probably a major thing for ServiceNow is we do acquire technology.
Yeah.
We don't acquire products necessarily. We acquire technology.
You acquire the IP, don't you? And
exactly.
Re-platform it.
We re-platform. We put so it's part of ServiceNow. It's not a bolt-on.
Yeah.
Which is why things can disappear for 12 months, and then they appear as being some new functionality within the product, which allows you to be able to do this. But we've got the people as well.
Yeah.
That then allow us to grow that functionality. It's not just a case of we buy product A, we put product A in, and it never goes anywhere.
Yeah.
It's constantly evolving in the way we manage it.
As with Forbes in 2018, was it 2018 the most innovative company in the world, isn't it? It's still a great, such a great accolade still, and we see it. And I think that was a funny moment for me because, we'd seen the build up to it anyway, but for ages I was, kind of thinking, especially running this business, like, when's this going to run out of steam? Like, because we're dominating the ITSM market, and obviously, ITOM was coming around, and ITBM as well, and bits were coming in, and all of a sudden you start to realize all of the products that they invest in take off at some point. It's just a case of when. Obviously the curve is probably slower than some of them like sometimes in adoption, but we're seeing over the long term, every product takes off. And all of a sudden I realised, God, if they can keep innovating like that, there is not going to run out of steam.
It's the continuous innovation, isn't it?
Yeah.
And it is, again, it's phased, which is the right approach. So what we don't do is we don't say, in a release, here's AI or predictive intelligence, that's it.
Yeah.
This is what it does. Use it, and that's it. And then in 2-3 years' time, it's still the same.
Yeah.
It's far from that. We deploy a bit of technology, release it, and then it just grows and grows.
It's funny these days.
Like I said, starts with ITSM, now all the way through to, all the platform.
Yeah.
Even now, being able to manage knowledge, being able to manage knowledge using machine learning, make sure that actually, if a case does come in and we can't operate it, the operators have the correct knowledge at the right time to be able to resolve it. So it's really impressive how it grows.
It's a different world, isn't it? And it's funny when you're saying it, because you think back then to the old days where you remedy and get a version and it'd be installed and someone might not upgrade it ever again. And the same even down to the discovery tools. And they'd put BMC discovery in or something. Again, so just sit there for 3-5 years and everyone's creating custom patterns everywhere and all kinds of stuff. And
I still remember
real
that.
change in the market. Yeah.
I don't know.
Customers are still doing it. Our customers are still doing it.
You go in, you see a bit of technology, like, okay, that's interesting, it does this. Okay, when did you last upgrade it? It would not be outrageous to hear, let me take a look, 3 years ago.
Yeah.
Right, we might need to.
Things end of life in even, and all kinds of stuff
People always
going on.
took things to the end of life.
They did,
and they still do. It's just, within ServiceNow, we made that end of life really short.
Yeah.
And it's not because we're trying to be difficult. Yes, it's more operating costs to support multiple versions. Yeah. But actually, it's the innovation. And if we see our customers are missing out on innovation, that's a big thing. They're not getting that full satisfaction out of the product that they could be doing.
That's the key. It's the customer satisfaction. And also, what it also does, which I love, is it forces them to keep the platform hygiene good. Because if you're upgrading every release or every 2 releases, the delta amount of time for you to mess up the system is a lot shorter. So if you have started tweaking anything weird or doing stuff, which hopefully you haven't, but if you have, you're going to catch that at the next release, as opposed to the clients we've seen in the past who are 5 years down the line without an upgrade, and they've done everything in that system. There's no new functionality in it. They're not getting any of the benefit of it being a SaaS platform, or any of the innovative benefits of that. And
you're always playing catch up.
Yeah.
If once you've done that upgrade and you've gone through the pain because you were so far behind, you've then got to bring that capability into your world and start using it. By the time you've done that, it's just continuous and
just a big world of pain then, isn't it?
Basically.
I think we make it simple. We provide you the tools now to be able to check before you do the upgrade. So there's no reason now why an upgrade every 6 months or 12 months is not easily achievable.
We're seeing clients adopting that now, aren't we? It is getting easier, and also I think the fact it's a bit more enforced and partners are encouraging that. Come on, let's get to the latest upgrade, latest version before we do anything. Let's not let this sit. It's become much more of a mentality now, isn't it, to do it?
It used to pain me. I used to hear that a lot when I first started working at ServiceNow, in terms of customers would be talking about how long their upgrade cycle was, and it was almost disbelief. Like, this can't be true. You can't be throwing that many people and time just on an upgrade. Even if it serves not anything, that's just not.
One of our government clients, and it wasn't a major. I mean, it was a decent sized organisation, probably 6,000 staff, but it wasn't a 100,000 staff one. But it was months. It was like 3 to 6 months minimum.
Should not be the case.
And an army of people, like testers, QA testers, test managers, and then techies, and a lot of that's their internal culture around testing and the approach to it as well. So a lot of it for us is encouraging them to we need to make it quicker because it's better for you guys, but also you don't need to do it like this, and this. You can automate these tests. These are the bits you need to check. The tool will tell you these bits, rather than, I think traditionally, especially in potentially in public sector, maybe in some other regulated environments too, where in the past, if things go down, if the MOT service goes down for someone, it's on the news. So people became very protective and scared, and it was like they'd rather test everything for 6 months and spend hundreds of thousands than risk, something going wrong.
It was rigid controls.
That
we put in place.
Yeah.
So whether that's testing, change control,
we as an organisation,
as in just the industry, whether it's public sector, whatever, we created these very strict processes around a lot of our IT.
Yeah, I agree, and it's exactly why you said people didn't want failure. So the more we test it to death, then the less chance we have of it failing.
The irony is it would still be a failure.
But 20 years ago isn't now.
No.
Yeah, and the way things work now with SaaS, with keeping things quote unquote as out of the box as possible. It's a lot simpler with all the tools that you get with ServiceNow. It's really simple. And to just show that, we do a 6 monthly cycle, as you know, in terms of new releases. People used to think that's very quick, far too quick. We'll do every other if you're lucky. But actually now the demand is so much for new functionality. Just like, this is all from Google and people like that really started this, where everything was a beta. But they want something new. We now start publishing stuff on the store. So from a ServiceNow perspective,
I saw that recently actually.
If we've got another pattern that we've got for discovery or something new, even products, we're starting to release out of band. So, for example, 3 months into
there was a product recently when I can't remember which one I read.
Insights was one.
That's it. And it was like, it's available on the store now, or you can wait for this. And I thought, wow, this is a great way to
DevOps as well as being consumed via the store.
So we're one of the DevOps partner companies, which is cool. So so actually DevOps Group in the UK, they're based in this building, so they're upstairs. So we partnered with them, and they were onboarded us as the main UK partner for the DevOps product. So we're really excited about. We're actually right in the middle now of the go-to-market activity and pushing things a bit faster.
That'll be a big thing. In the next release, which is due out shortly, we'll see that as a big thing.
And it fits well with us because we like ITOM, we like CMDB, and then DevOps for us as well. It's that agility tech. It's a nice link.
Been talking DevOps for years. I remember talking about it 10, 15 years ago. And there were massive projects to actually bring it in. I honestly, from what I saw, I never saw anything succeed properly. And I think the problem was, and it's a great I know it's going slightly off track.
No, go for it.
But it's something that we haven't done. Is a lot of organisations like ourselves go in there and try and tell you that you don't need this, you don't need that. Just use this tool and it'll solve everything. And we're basically saying that's not the case. You've got your development tools. You've got all of those. You've had them for years. They work well for you. You employ lots of people who know those tools. All we want to manage the process, because it's the process that tends to be the thing that breaks. And that slows things down. So from our perspective, we're managing the process. You still use the tools that you used to do all the back end, the development, your Jenkins, all of those sort of
Chef,
things.
Puppet, Ansible, all these tools.
But we'll manage it. And then we'll manage the change process, which is a thing that breaks. And as we know, when change goes wrong, that's when you start to get incidents because things fail once they go live.
And also, the way we've been badgering a bit of it around it as well, linking to that change, is the fact that it'll speed up the change management process. So you want to be releasing quick in your DevOps way, but let's not throw the ITSM governance out the window. But linking these tools automatically, you can make this very streamlined, very automatic. And
you can choose which bits do you want to put through an automatic product change without needing to go through change management.
As long as you meet the auto governance, then why not get it to go through straight away? You shouldn't have to go and wait till the next change board in a week's time.
Yeah, and then it's a 10-day lead time on a major change, all these kind of things going on.
It takes a sprint out of sprint, really.
Yeah, it does. Yeah. And good luck getting any tools off techies anyway. You know, trying to unseat Jira for me is a battle. And every client I go in, I'm like, we've got, I go in with SDLC or Agile, development is called now, and trying to unseat the devs from Jira alone.
Skills possible to go.
It's just they'll just run what they want.
They're also bringing new tools out all the time, which being a developer they want to use.
Yeah, they want the shiny new tools, and
and there's no way larger organisation like ourselves would ever do that. It's not our specialisation.
Yeah.
So why do it? But that's how I saw it fail in the past. Yeah. Is we tried to replace people's tools.
Yeah.
My favourite one was going back a few years was try taking project off a project manager.
Yeah, but it wasn't it? Good luck, and it was. And we tried to get them onto ITBM or something. It wasn't happening at the start. They were like, and some of them still want to be in Excel. They've got this way. They like making little project plans in Excel, and even trying to get them into project was another battle.
Again, that I see that more as a culture thing.
It is.
Because people, again, it's something I own. Nobody else can change it.
Yeah.
And I've seen so many mistakes happen in organisations because things are kept on spreadsheets and potentially costly mistakes.
Yep.
Because nobody else has visibility. Or actually, I have a spreadsheet and I share it with Adam, and Adam creates his version of the spreadsheet now, which is the real one.
Probably your one.
And then we leave it to 3 people, and they reply to different parts of the chain with another version. And
exactly.
So again, and that's going back, and I know this all sounds a bit non-AIOps, but actually, this goes back to the crux of what ServiceNow is about, and that's the platform.
Yeah.
Everything is in one place. Yeah, be it ITBM, AIOps, software asset management.
Yeah.
It's all using the same tables.
Yeah.
It's all using that same collaboration. So I can collaborate with anyone in my business that I want to be able to, and I trust with those roles to be able to do it.
It's all tied
rather
together.
Than having 15 different tool sets to do these things. That you have to upgrade at different times and things like that. It just makes the process so much simpler and the collaboration so much easier.
I love it. So, going back to a bit of AIOps, before we jump into a bit more of that, let's talk about machine learning very quickly, just to clarify for people who are listening. So we're saying, today machine learning is a big thing. We're seeing it used, answering questions on your phone with, Alexas and these types of things, through to medical diagnosis, self-driving cars are all kind of using machine learning to pick up data points and get smarter, basically. And and what we've been told is there's 3 key ways that machine learning kind of can learn. So supervised, unsupervised, and reinforced learning. So I'm just going to briefly read out these definitions of these. So supervised learning is where it checks its answers against a kind of cheat sheet, essentially, and kind of iteratively makes improvements. Unsupervised is where it's kind of sifting through large data sources, it's finding clustering and association, and this is kind of what we think is the really powerful version in the AI world of AIOps, or the type that's being
it's
run
the
with.
one that adds a lot of value. Within AIOps is as Adam said earlier on, it's getting rid of the noise.
Yeah,
it's reducing all those events into alerts, but then it's reducing those alerts into primary and secondary.
Okay,
that makes a big
so
difference.
It's really just using smart to get focus and okay. And then the last type, this is reinforced learning. So it's answering the answers it provides a given feedback. The machine system learns to give better answers in the future by adjusting its algorithm it used to get to that point. Okay, so just diving in on that unsupervised learning bit then, do you want to just talk us through an example of, I know we talked maybe about categorization, so just how is the machine, what is the machine doing there? So you're giving it a bunch of data on historical ticket data, I guess, as an example, and then letting the machine run its way through it?
There's multiple ways in which it learns. So one of the first ways is around the alerts, as we really just talked about.
Okay.
So you've got all the events coming in into the event table. It then sifts out the stuff that it sees as noise.
Yeah.
We don't get rid of it, but it sifts it out. So then you've already focused on particular ones. From a ServiceNow perspective, that's when we change it to be an alert, if it's something we want to work on.
Okay.
And then once it becomes an alert, then it will start to use that machine learning that it's got to basically say, well, can I see similarities in here? So this, for example, from, and let's name them, coming from, say, Dynatrace, this coming from SCOM, this alert coming from SolarWinds.
Okay.
They're actually all related.
Yeah.
So we'll make one the primary, and then we'll have the secondary. So again, that makes your focus a lot simpler.
Okay.
But what it'll also do in the background, and Adam might add some more detail to this, is then what you're doing is you're going into the more detail of what it's seen in the past, when these sort of things have happened.
Yeah.
you can bring in operation intelligence into this as well, which is something we've not really spoken about, but it's been within ServiceNow for a while, where you can bring in metrics from servers into ServiceNow, and it correlates those as well.
Is this the metric base part of the product?
It's using something called metric base. Within here, it's called operation intelligence.
I remember this part of the product.
And it comes with the event management. So you can have event management on its own, but it's not necessarily recommended. Operation intelligence, you need both of them together. And that's where you really start getting the value, because it will see that this particular server is in this state when you see these alerts coming in and events coming in.
Got it.
And it can start then seeing patterns.
Yeah.
So this happened last week, and it's happened again this week.
Yeah.
Now I can start being a bit more predictive, because last time this happened, this was the state.
Yeah.
This time we can say, well, in X amount of time, potentially, you're going to have this state again.
Okay.
If you don't do something about it. And then you go to the next stage, and all this takes a little bit of time just to set up and get it to learn itself, because you need data for it to learn. But ultimately, then you get to the state where you actually say, how we solved this problem last time was by like doing a remediation.
Okay.
But then you can start, and Adam will just talk a little bit about similarity.
Yeah.
You can start using the similarities to look at things as well.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, when we break it down in terms of AIOps and predictive intelligence in ServiceNow, as predictive intelligence has grown, we've started to build out frameworks.
Okay.
So we have a few different frameworks for different use cases of AI in ServiceNow.
Yeah.
So you've got the classification that we've covered. This is where you're able to pick up a fairly large subset of data.
Yeah.
Think of 30,000 closed incidents, cases, whatever, and learn from that data.
Okay.
So we're able to know how a case was correctly resolved from that historical data. Therefore, we can start to predict and so on.
Yeah.
Then we have the NLU framework. Now we're starting to be able to talk to computers in a much more easier, friendly way.
This is the natural language stuff, yeah?
Exactly. Okay. So now we can just talk, put a command in, whatever it might be, and it'll understand us, get us to the right process in ServiceNow, and do that for us. And we're seeing that grow through NLP, NLQ, and so on. So we can talk about some of that stuff. That's exciting as well.
Yeah.
The next framework after that was similarity.
Okay.
So now we're actually able to say to an IT agent, operator, whoever, actually here's a similar case, incident linked to the alert or event you're working on.
Yeah.
And therefore here's some knowledge to fix it or how it was fixed before. So that's how you get to the point where you're able to do the one click and so on. And I always think the interesting thing is, who is this for? Who is this helping?
Yeah.
Who does AI help?
Yeah.
AIOps help? Who does predictive intelligence help? It's everybody. Everybody in the business, whether that's the operator, an exec, the end user, whoever it is, has direct benefits from this type of technologies and frameworks.
Yeah, I agree, and I think this is really the sort of key area around it. And something I was reading the other day was, and I come from an APM background, performance management, not portfolio management. And from that side of things, it was all around things like performance of systems, end user performance, which is still key.
Yeah.
But it's the way we used to measure things.
Yeah.
The way people still do, is we very much say we expect this to happen in this amount of time.
Yeah.
And if it doesn't happen in this amount of time, then that's when it's in a poor state.
Yeah.
Nowadays, that's not necessarily true.
No.
Yeah? We need to be more dynamic around that side. So what we can also do around some of the intelligence side of things, especially when we're bringing in the operational intelligence, is we can start to look at where it, but ultimately based on what the information is we're giving it, is a poor state.
Okay.
So it might be something running really high CPU,
yeah,
but the response time is good, is actually not a problem.
Okay, yeah.
But traditionally, if I'd been using something like Windows Performance Manager back in the days, then I'd have said something running at 100% CPU was bad. But it's not. It's not if you're still getting good performance.
Yeah.
It's just the way that process works. However, if you're then getting poor performance from something else, or you've got a massive queue starting to build within the processor or this side, stitching all that together, that's where you've got a problem. So from our point of view, that's where we start to look at things like anomalies.
Yeah.
So we'll start giving it dynamic scoring.
Okay.
So based on what's happening and what we're seeing, we can give it dynamic scoring. So we can say 0, it's great. 9, not so great.
Yeah.
And that could change day to day, hour to hour, minute to minute.
Yeah.
And that's when you start getting into that predictive side of things. Because we're not taking a line in the sand and saying it's only when it goes over that line is it a problem. We're looking at everything within that environment that makes sense and saying, well, actually, when these things happen, that's where we have the potential issues.
Awesome.
That's really good. You know, if you asked me now, show me, if we were sat in front of a customer talking about AI, and you said, can you show me AIOps?
Yeah.
Thinking about this, probably the way I would show it is we have experiences that we can show connected to ServiceNow. And the story is you're an IT operator and you're on the move, but you've got your mobile with you and you get an alert that a service is about to go down in 30 minutes. Because we know that. We have the information in ServiceNow. We know it's about to go down. We get the alert. Okay, click on the alert. Can stay where you are. Don't need to run back to the office. And then you're presented with options. We know something's going to go down. We know this is going to be the impact. It's against this business service. It will cost your business this much revenue and damage. Here's some options for you. Do you want to roll back? Now that will take 8 minutes. Do you want to put a fix in or whatever it might be? You get the options, click, done, and then it will give you the information of you prevented that outage. And that's you. That's real. That's using.
It's awesome, isn't it?
The data, and that's a real experience that we could. You know, for me, that's how I'd articulate a modern operations using AI.
And it's got to go that way, isn't it? It just comes back again. We keep coming back to that. It's that complexity these days around all those different systems, the tools, the silos, you know, the ever-changing technology. I always kind of think of the analogy of a car. You know, like 20, 30 years ago, you know, even people at home, like, you know, my dad would do it. You go out and work on the engine. You know, you pop the bonnet. There's quite what now looks like quite a normal-looking, you know, engine. Very simple and basic. There's a few spark plugs and some cables and bits and pieces. Whereas now, you know, the cars, even before you put the tech in, the engines themselves, like I drive a hybrid, so I've got batteries and I've got an engine in the back, and you know, the engine itself is some super hyped up. It's only a 1.5, but it's pushing about 200 horsepower or something out this tiny engine. So the whole thing just looks, you can't even open it. And then they throw in all the technology on top. You know, you can't work on it. You can't just be a home mechanic these days playing with a Tesla the same way you would play with, you know, an old 4-cylinder engine in the old days or whatever. And tech for me has gone that same way. Whereas 30 years ago, you had, you know, even though you had to be in IT to work in it, you had a fairly basic system, and there would be a handful of things you'd fix and check, and 5 components in a service, if not 1 or 2. Whereas now there's thousands of them, and they're spinning up and down and ever fluctuating, and all these kind of webs of resilience and all other stuff going on. It's just a totally different beast, isn't it? So visibility coming from AIOps, focus coming from AIOps, intelligence coming from AIOps, so all kind of those I'm hearing is the kind of key messages of what this can bring to the table.
And your analogy of the car is a perfect one. You know, in the old days, you used to wait till your car used to sound a little bit rough.
It's exactly
smoke
that.
coming out.
Smoke coming out of it, maybe not accelerating quite so
funny
well.
noise.
Brakes not working.
Nowadays, somebody will phone you while you're in your car, tell you might have a problem that's about to happen.
It's great, isn't
That's
it?
exactly the same. But what we're doing is, so the complexity I don't think nowadays is an issue if you're managing it correctly. And we have everything now within, for example, the AIOps within ServiceNow to be able to manage that correctly. Without a massive amount of effort. Yes, you need some effort. You need to have good CMDB. You need to have some sort of consistency around some of your processes in terms of data that people enter, where it does need manual entry, so that then you can start using this engine a lot better. But ultimately, you're letting it do the work for you in a lot of the cases. Whereas 5 years ago, somebody had to sift through all that stuff.
And these things we're talking about anyway, like the CMDB, like the processes, you need those anyway. It's, you know, these aren't things you've got to put in so you can do AIOps. These are things you need for governance and for, you know, a smooth operation and visibility anyway in any kind of, you know, reasonable size estate. So hopefully this is just, if you haven't got those already, this is a good thing in the business case to say, by doing this, we can get there. And we're seeing that actually. So one of our clients, we did the original CMDB. We give them all the process and bits and pieces and left, and when we went back a couple of years later, it had stayed where it was. So we were doing it fresh for them, and also really giving a lot more consultancy around the other stuff. But what was interesting was kind of midway through the project was that client actually was wanting to do things like the the operation intelligence and the agent intelligence, but also SecOps and things. And they couldn't because the CMDB needed to underpin it. So the good thing was they were a good client. They flipped it on his head and went back to the business and said, look, guys, we need to do SecOps and intelligence over here. And to enable that, we need to do this foundational CMDB here and then run it properly to get these things right over here. And they used that as the business case. And it was a good...
it's really good.
Yeah, it's cool. It's a good project that's going on there.
Absolutely. That's a good story. And it's something that I think is in a lot of places.
Yeah.
They could gain so much benefit out of automating the way they manage and update the CMDB.
Our approach is always, you've got to be automation first. If we can automate it, we will, whatever that looks like. Ideally, we want to just discover it with a native ServiceNow's discovery tool if we can. Our second option then is, can we integrate into another tool that you've got and build an automation? And then the final one, obviously, is the least manual, the most manual. But even then, we say, we still ideally don't want you going into the CMDB and typing new things in. We'd rather have a structured data source somewhere, even if it's a spreadsheet on a share, and ServiceNow will run a batch job a couple of times a day and pick up the new data. So at least let's keep making it as automated as possible within the journey. Now, people, I think, in the old days used to say, well, I can't automate that. We leave it. It's manual or it doesn't get done. And, it's an off-network device or something. And, it doesn't...
always pays off, even if it can be hard work to get to that stage. That's why people put it off.
Yeah.
And, I can just see it now. It's like, I won't... It's a bit like incident and versus problem management, isn't it? Yeah. It's just easier to keep fixing it because to fix a problem is it's a different skill. I don't know when I'll fix it.
Yeah.
Identify that root cause. Yeah. It could be 2 hours. It could be 3 months.
Yeah.
So therefore,
and it does go on for months and months.
I'm just going to come in and run that same batch file I do every morning to fix it. It's easy. It's that approach. Yeah, you're right. But one thing
excuse me.
One thing I always really like to show and talk about in ServiceNow is, as we're talking through all of this capability and technology, machine learning, AI, AIOps, like, I have to be careful, we have to be careful working for a vendor, not just turning up and talking about how easy everything is.
Absolutely.
Being a bit arrogant about that.
Yeah.
Although technology has moved on so much, and it is getting easier to deploy. Simplified IT is one of my favourite kind of sayings. That's where we should be going for. But actually, we do need to do some work and manage some challenges. But what we do, I think, is really good, is we give information around whatever you're doing.
Yeah.
So if it's a CMDB and you've deployed it, actually there's data and dashboards and reporting on a single screen to tell you that how well that environment's working. So you can see every morning, how's my CMDB looking?
Yeah.
It's 80% accurate, or I need to do some work in this space, or this particular area of CIs isn't as good as it should be. I can go and work on that. I can make changes, improve it. Same as predictive intelligence. Where is it working well?
Yeah.
Where's it working? Where isn't it working?
Yeah.
So it's not about just deploying something and then never really knowing if it's successful or not. How do you know if you've got successful CMDB? If you were put on the spot by your CTO or whoever, how's your CMDB? It's like, well, I think it's pretty good.
Yeah.
Actually, you can say, well, here you go, here's the information.
And our projects actually start with, how do we define good? So
exactly.
How are we going to know at the end of this project if we've given you a successful CMDB? What does it look like to you? What do you need to see in there? What do you need to be able to do with it? Let's define that. Even before we talk about anything else, what's the goal? And what's the goal? What's the actual business objective we're trying to achieve here?
Same as AIOps. So, you would never turn up and say, we're going to implement AIOps for you. It's going to be great fun and fantastic. The conversation would be, what do you want to get out of AIOps?
Okay.
Because it might be you focus on machine learning.
Yeah.
It might be that you focus on some different sides of AIOps.
Yeah, for sure.
What is sensible for that business?
Yeah. What's hurting you right now? What can we make better?
And what's your goals and outcomes for that year and project?
I mean, the outcomes for anything like this should be business outcomes.
Definitely.
Never be technology, but quite a lot of times they are led by technology. Technology should be the way we get to those outcomes. And by using some of the reporting, you can see how well you're doing on that side of things. But actually, that continual improvement is something that is something you need to aim for. So by using things like performance analytics within ServiceNow, gives you that ability to look at your trend, understand what's happening, where you're potentially going. so that you can change that route, for example, if it's not going as well as you expected.
Yeah.
But ultimately, every single one of those reports should not be about the number of events and things like that. It should be about things like, I know it's still a technology term, like mean time between fixes, how often does it go down? But actually,
relating to a service,
business,
though,
it means the service is still running.
Yeah, I think my clients a lot of times used to think I was a pain at the start of these projects because I would really drill in on what's the business outcome, and they'd have a technology outcome, and I'm like, yeah, but why? Why though? Yeah. And they'd say something, I'd be like, yeah, but why? Where's the impact? Is it the customers can't get to something on the website? Is it one of your services is broken and it's degraded and they're unhappy? Why do you want to fix it? Because we're probably going to come in and ask you for a reasonable sum of money, potentially. A lot of these good projects, if you want to do them really, depending where the client is and their maturity, but if you go into an immature environment, they got mess everywhere, no processes, it's going to be some consulting money there. I honestly don't want you to give me that money unless we can define why we're doing it, what good looks like, and where's the pain. Because you're going to begrudge giving us that money if at the end of it you've got this CMDB or this AIOps is implemented now and this stuff, but there's no tangible, but why? And we've seen, we've had clients who want to do CMDB and we drill and some of them, there are people out there that are almost at the point where they've been, I don't know if it's because they're so small or what they do, they almost don't need a proper CMDB. They've got a bunch of assets in their company somewhere. They kind of need to register them, but everything else is maybe outsourced and this and that is happening, and they don't need one. They think they need this huge project. So
they've heard about it forever.
They've heard about it forever, yeah. So their version of or at least their version of what they need in that CMDB is it's not this over here with everything linked and automating discovery tools running. They just basically need a register here of who to ring when a certain asset is not working. So yeah, we really like to drill in hard on that, and the team here are really big on doing the same thing.
That's a great approach.
Yeah, and it's just trying through the project to keep pulling that focus back. It's easy to go down a little side road, and all of a sudden we like define it as well, so we can say to people, hang on, does that align back to that business objective over there you want, or is this kind of a new thing that something shiny over here? And it kind of gives you that clarity all the way through. So
it does, and it helps them see ultimately. It's the end customer, which for an IT should always be the business.
Exactly.
And then for the business, it's always the end consumer.
Yeah. Awesome. So tell me a little bit about some of the more technical stuff around. We talked earlier about the NLU and some other bits, some of the terms used I didn't quite catch. But do you want to talk around some of the technology as well, like the natural language stuff and other things that are within the capability?
Yeah. So let's start off with NLU. So we first saw that introduced in the platform through our virtual agent.
Yeah, okay.
So virtual agent came out in 2 releases, I think.
Okay.
And it was a conversational virtual agent, which was great. It worked well.
Yeah.
But what it didn't have was the AI side of it.
Okay.
It didn't have any AI helping customers use it.
Yeah.
So we did an acquisition, as we talked about earlier, through Parlo, and we took that IP and put that into the platform.
Yeah.
And at a very high level, what it means is you can, first of all, get to the right conversation in that virtual agent quickly.
Yeah.
So the user doesn't have to select an option.
Pick the very specific words to get through.
You put a command in, you go to the right part of the virtual agent.
Okay.
And the example I always use is previously without AI, you would say, I need to update my profile and my email on my profile, and my email address is Adam. It would then go through the conversation.
Okay.
What do you want to do? I want to update my email. I just told you. What's your email address? It's this. I just told you. Whereas with the NLU, it's able to read all of that information and actually just go straight in and do it. So we'll just say done. And
I think that's so important because experience is what's going to drive adoption and kind of that thing, isn't it? In a very similar way to where, going back a funny example, but years ago when we first introduced like offshore call centers, 20, 30 years ago, and with the language barriers that were there in the early days, people didn't want to use them. Whereas when those got a lot easier and people got used to it and the adoption kind of went up, because if people get frustrated, they jump on a virtual agent and they're I mean, I've done it. You go on, you type it, you just think
you're going to give it one chance,
and you're done, aren't you?
And we were joking about millennials earlier.
Yeah,
this is how we use technology now.
Yeah,
not just millennials, everybody, because it works.
Yeah,
whether it's Uber, Amazon, whatever, it works. If we go to work and we use a virtual agent and we're getting stuck in a conversation just trying to update our email, guess what?
Yeah.
You're never going to use it again. You're done. Yeah. So that's why NLU is important. And before we go into the other sides of it, you got me thinking about when you go into your customers and talk about outcomes. And what's the outcome? What's it going to do for your business?
Yeah.
It's the same for virtual agent and NLU and our predictive intelligent frameworks. It's kind of the what.
Yeah.
So what we do, if you hear Mark and I talk about ServiceNow and this technology, often we won't just talk about, it's a virtual agent and it's got NLU and this is how it works and it's all great and funky technology. It's more around what is this going to do for your business?
Yeah.
So you think about the virtual agent, well, overnight, it will transform the culture and how that business works. Potentially it was 9 to 5, it was phone calls, it was emails.
Yeah.
Now it's 24/7.
Yeah.
You can consume services anywhere, anytime, on the move. It's a completely different way of working. It just opens up so many doors. So that's how we think about how this technology goes and helps everybody in the business. Then we start to get really excited, or I do, when we start talking about NLP and NLQ. And again, we've done some acquisitions in this space, and they're not in the platform yet.
What do these stand for? So NLU is natural language understanding?
Querying and processing.
Querying and processing, okay.
So the acquisition we did for the processing side of it, that actually we've got some information coming through now, but early days.
Was it Sky Giraffe or something? Was that something else?
Was it Friendly Data?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, Sky Giraffe was a mobile.
That's right, yeah, sorry.
And again, this is similar to the experience in the free test, because what this will mean is, imagine you're an exec or a stakeholder of a service or business, and you need to see some information, some KPIs, some trending, whatever it is.
Yeah.
You're not in the system all day, every day.
Yeah.
Even though it's very intuitive and easy to find, you don't use it all the time. So maybe you can't find it, or it takes too long, or you have to walk down the corridor and ask Liam, who's just turned up, where it is. It takes too long. Actually, you want to just type it in.
Yeah.
Tell me the trending for onboarding over the last month.
Okay.
Type that in.
Yeah. Bang,
there's your report, whether it's in free text or reporting.
I get excited hearing this too. It sounds
so
fun compared to the old days.
Imagine you do that at your desk, just type it in, that's cool. But also imagine you're walking down the street on your app and you do voice to text.
Yeah.
Tell me the latest KPI for downtime in this particular service. There's your report. Yeah. It's a different world. Yeah. So this is where we're going.
And the thing is, as with all these things, similar to the example you gave about millennials and things, we're very impatient as culturally now. I am, and my kids are a million times worse than me. Because when you get used to something that works this speed all the time, and it's always on, and it never fails, and it's easy to use, as soon as you hit the first wall, if culturally, or however you would phrase it, if like my kids, their whole lives, they've lived in that world. My eldest son's 15, so he grew up with me being in tech, same with you guys. I brought him up in a really technology-based house, So he's only ever known everything is instant, everything's always on, everything's usable. If you put something in front of him that doesn't work, his willpower's not great. He just quits. He's like, I think, can't use this is rubbish, I'm out. And I'm a bit like that, because the more you get used to it. And
I think the best thing you said is done. I'll never go back to it. It's done. I won't use that bit of technology again. I'll use something else.
You switch off. And it happens. And even with tech now, if I use something and it's a very bad experience, it takes me a long time to go back. And it's usually like a year or two later. And all of a sudden, there's a buzz around that app again. And people are going, oh, yeah, well, it used to be terrible. But now, and you go back in, you're like, oh, yeah, this is what I was expecting 2 years ago. And you get back in. But I think this will do the same thing. Because once we get culturally used to being able to type, hey, throw me my KPIs for these services. If you try and go to another organization to work then, where that doesn't exist, and you're back to SQL commands or Boolean reports, and even in the ServiceNow engine, which is much prettier than a lot of the old way of reporting, you're not going to be people aren't going to be able to process it or adapt.
And technology has a short life cycle. And with the new generations coming along, you're completely right, which is why the way we're changing, the way ServiceNow is utilised, the acquisitions around Sky Giraffe that you mentioned earlier on, just means that people can do more mobile. They don't have to be sat at a laptop.
And that's also even culturally with working at home these days now. It's all of a sudden it's become very normal. Like in the ServiceNow world, our devs expect to generally be able to work at home where they want, and we encourage it if they want to.
Want to be able to do things the easiest way possible, and that goes the same for the systems. Yeah. So I don't want to sit there for 20 minutes to get the report out that I want and have to speak to 15 people to get it. I just want to do exactly what Adam just says, and within, let's say, 30 seconds, that report appears on my dashboard. Yeah,
that's a great point about talking about working from home and culture and how people want to work. And we were talking this morning before we started the podcast about talent and recruiting and what type of people you want to bring into the business. When you're looking for the very best talent, they will often say, "This is how I work. I work in this way." It's can I say a modern way of working. It's not 9 to 5 at a desk.
It's not.
But the good thing is we have the technology to support that now.
Exactly.
So bringing it back to AIOps, an operator can work like that. We used to have to say you have to come into the office. If you're not sat at your desk, you're not supporting the organisation and the business. Now they can be walking down the street, coming into the office at 10:30, still actually managing work cases, keeping things running and moving. So that's really exciting how we can change the culture of businesses and how people work. And really going off on one now, you got me thinking, talking about kids and how they use technology. This week I had some really going off one.
Go for it.
We had some
my favourite bits.
We had some plans done for a house extension.
Oh, cool.
So it was really great fun. We went there and they went through the plans on a big screen using CAD. What they do now is they send you the plans using an online version, so you can see it all in the 3D model. Really great. Go home that evening. I'm quickly looking around. I'm trying to figure out myself how to use this to move around the house. So my boy is 9. He sees me doing it. He wants to look at it. He wants to see his bedroom in the house. So
That's
I go
exciting.
upstairs, come back downstairs, and he's showing me how to go switch between first view and step into the room and move around. You press this button, you move this key, and I'm like,
Just rinsed you.
How did you know that? The reason I'm going off on one telling that is that's how technology is being used now. So we talk about NLP and NLQ and virtual agents. People are able to adopt it. They're able to just start using it and not be scared of it, afraid of it, and not adopting it.
Agreed. Simple adoption,
and it'll become the norm, and then all of a sudden the old stuff in a few years will be horrible again. And
the norm is the key. So for everyone coming into any new organisation now, they need to be the norm as the least. Innovative would be great, but at least doing stuff that I do on a day-to-day basis, just like I do at home, is key. And if you don't have that, you don't get the talent.